All right, good afternoon, class. This is your professor, Dr. Jace Austin, and welcome to week number 14. Yes, week number 14, due to the holiday of 7313, collection and access management. Um, a few I wouldn't even say updates in this particular video, this particular check-in video. What I'm going to say is that updates are coming regarding clarification of some of the language in the group assignment that you all have coming up. So just be on the lookout for that. Hopefully, I will. I've been in talks via email through Dr. Beth Brindler, and we've agreed that we want to clarify one particular piece that we've been emailed about regarding the final assignment. So we're going to do that. So be on the lookout for a note from me um, at the latest Wednesday afternoon. Aside from that, though, we are, of course, expecting and hoping you all have a happy Thanksgiving and a great Black Friday and all of those things. Um, Aside from that, everyone's been doing pretty well. There are no updates there. During this break time, I am going to be grading the second papers that you all turned in, and I look forward to that. And then when it comes to just some of these other elements that are going on in the class, one thing that, because I like to just I like to top off these check-in videos with just a little bit of a spiel, doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just give them a little bit of something. One of the articles that one of the recent articles that kind of caught my eye and that I just wanted to talk about a little bit was the inevitability of open access article. And this is I'll say that this is an article, first of all, that is spot on. Um, Open access probably is inevitable. And there have been ways that librarians have kind of skirted around to provide open access for, something. They haven't been providing open access. That would be that would be totally wrong for me to say, but we have been trying to make sure that most of these materials that we don't have in our own collections, we are still acquainting patrons with. Interlibrary loan has been around for a while now and will continue on. And I think that interlibrary loan, for instance, is one of those things that is kind of leading up to the inevitable future where open access will be the thing. But there are quite a few other things to take into consideration. For one thing, we do have I would say some rogue librarians, and I won't use the hashtag. And honestly, rogue isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm not being critical. I might even be in favor, but I'm not going to render that opinion now. But I know that there are librarians who use a certain hashtag on Twitter to exchange materials amongst one another. And whether or not, copyright aside, by the way, and whether or not you believe that's a good or a bad thing, well, that's going to vary. That's going to be decided on a case-by-case basis. Like I said, I am not endorsing nor am I opposing those actions by those librarians. It is a move of activism and social justice from their viewpoints. Also, and I think I mentioned this previously, one thing that we've got to consider, and one thing that I think the public is eventually really going to take note of, is that a lot of the research that is behind paywalls is publicly funded. It is stuff that, these are things that are oftentimes funded either by, or the research is either completed by professors at state institutions or it's completed with the research is completed using grant money from federal agencies or things of that nature. But there is a lot of publicly funded research that we are putting behind paywalls. Think about that for a second. The public, I think the only reason the public really hasn't gone ape mess about that is because the public may have bigger things on their mind as far as tax dollars. When we think about tax dollars, we are thinking mostly about education and about the military and about healthcare and about retirement. So I would say that definitely the open access issue is down on those priorities a little bit. However, um, there is still public awareness, and those demands for um, unrestricted and open access to publicly funded research and information is probably going to uh, it's probably going to catch on. It's probably going to be a movement at some point. I think what it's going to take is the right politician making it a movement of some form. But one thing that I really liked was this final paragraph. There will be many who will object to the decline of the subscription journal. Publishers of these journals will certainly take this stance, especially for-profit publishers hoping to preserve their lucrative income streams. They will argue that the resulting changes will be detrimental to scholarship, quality will suffer, but in the end, none of those arguments will matter. Disruptive innovations bring disruption. Disrupted institutions fail, and the disruptors succeed. And that is eventually what I believe is going to happen. It's kind of like this isn't necessarily my viewpoint, so, don't think that I am pushing any sort of Marxist rhetoric on you guys or anything. But I have a lot of friends who think that the post-capitalist society will be the result of electing the right politicians. And I do not believe that that's the case. I have a lot of friends who are either Green Party or they're big Bernie Sanders supporters or they're big Elizabeth Warren supporters. And they think that, yes, the right politicians will usher in a post-capitalist society. And then there are a lot of people, I've got a lot of friends as well, who feel that capitalism is the solution for innovation. It's the only way we get innovation, or the best way, I should say, that we get innovation, and it isn't going anywhere. I take an approach that I do believe that there will eventually be a post-capitalist society. I do not believe necessarily that capitalism is a bad thing. I don't want to get too much into the politics of it, but I think that it is a service by service issue, and I'm definitely not an anti-capitalist, but what I will say is, even with me not being an anti-capitalist, I do believe that there will be a post-capitalist society one day, and when that society comes to pass, it will not be because of elected officials, it will be because of technology and other types of innovation. And I've seen this in my previous field. My previous field was the news field, newspapers. I used to be a newspaper reporter, print journalist. And what I will say is print media, I think, actually a print or broadcast media. I think this is a case study for what is on the horizon everywhere. You see that a lot of the TV media nowadays, especially, is it's free to anyone. Um, you know, People these days tend to, even if they don't have cable, they have ways of streaming cable news. And then, of course, there's always, I shouldn't say always, but in our lifetimes, there's always been, broadcast news on television, on basic television. But streaming options for cable, finding news on YouTube, this, that, and the other. This is the result, I believe, of technological innovations ushering in post-capitalism. And I would say that, Craigslist is another. Um, Craigslist is yet another piece of this. So, how often do you hear about people taking out ads in the local newspaper these days? It used to be a thing. I tr- Trust me, I am old enough to remember when that was a thing. But now people are doing it on Craigslist. Nowadays, people are doing it on social media. They're doing it in print journalism too, but not the same way. So, yes, when it comes to advertising revenue, print media in particular has had to re examine how they make profits and how print revenue factors in. So this is what we are looking at. I think that in a similar way that Craigslist changed the way we approach advertising or taking out cheaper ads in the newspaper. I think that various other technological innovations are going to be what contribute to the post-capitalist society. But yeah, this is just a beautiful comment right here. Um, in the end, all of these things don't matter. Brings, disruptive innovations bring disruption. That's not specific to our field, that happens everywhere. And, well, that disruption, that disruption ultimately is inevitable. I don't know what else to say except that when you have disruptive forces, what happens is that institutions either adapt or they fail. And libraries are very resilient. We will adapt, but that does mean that it won't always be providing access for us. And so now you are seeing actually that idea of the impact, not access future. So that is something to consider. And I'm sure some of y'all just listened to me and were just like, yo, why did he tell me that? This is something that you may not be able to appreciate right now, but some of the things that I tell you all in this class or any other class, they are not things that you might be able to appreciate now, but in professional practice or as you actually start interacting with more librarians, you may just see why you were told that. Okay? So I'm laying some foundations for right now, and foundations aren't always easy to recognize as far as their worth, value, and importance. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.